morning, and thank you for joining us today. We're so glad you're here. If you are new to our community, or if you'd just like to learn about new ways to connect, please reach out to me. My name is tlewis, and I serve as the Director of Membership and Engagement. You can reach me directly at tlewis@unitytemple.org, or you can go to our website and fill out a visitor form, and I'll be in touch with you next week. Our website is www.unitytemple.org. I hope you enjoyed the service and look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Julie Willoughby, and I am a member of the Board of Trustees at Unity Temple. It is my pleasure to welcome you here this morning. Our values are connection, transformation, justice, and acceptance. Our mission is welcoming all, inspiring compassion, nurturing wonder, and serving community. We're especially glad this weekend to welcome Reverend Don Cooley, who will be joining us as our interim minister. A few of us had a chance to meet with Reverend Cooley over the weekend while she had moved into her new apartment in our community, and we're thrilled to have her join us on our journey. Please provide her with the warm welcome that we know that you can give. We look forward to seeing you hopefully in person at some time soon. Please remember to check our website to get updates on our reopening plan, fundraising, and all of the other information you need about what's going on at Unity Temple. Thank you and have a great day.
My name is Paul Gage. I'm a member of Unity Temple. I enjoy playing video games and reading books. We are Unitarian Universalists. This is the church of open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. We take care of the planet Earth and each other.
Good morning and welcome to Unity Temple. We invite you today to be challenged, to be invigorated, to worship with us. Whoever you are, wherever you are on life's journey, wherever you are in the world, you are welcome here. Come, let us worship together.
Please join us in the words of our covenant.
Love is a doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity and fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God.
Good morning. I'm Marty Swisher, Music Director at Unity Temple. Please join me in singing hymn number 218 in the Gray Hymnal, Who Can Say? Who can say I am free? I have purified my great heart. There are none on earth. There are none on earth. A new heart I will give, not stone, but one that frees. A new heart I give, and one that frees. May this day make us strong, like a tree of life with good fruit. Bless us now, amen. Bless us now, amen. May we now forgive, atone that we may live. May we now forgive that we may
This past winter, I presented a workshop at the Women's Retreat around healing justice. And in that workshop, I presented a piece on how to apologize correctly. For a time for all ages today, I want to share some of the things that I have learned about apologizing. I know it may seem really silly to talk about apologizing, but actually it's much more complicated than it first appears, especially when we find ourselves being hurtful in ways that continue to perpetuate things like racism or classism or sexism. When we harm people, when we hurt them more than just simply taking away their toys, but harm who they are as a person, we need to know how to apologize so that we truly come across as relationship building people who want to live in beloved community with each other, so that we really show we care. Some things I've learned about apologizing is, first of all, that it is super natural, super normal to get defensive, to justify ourselves when we have harmed someone. And sometimes that means that we turn the tables on them and say things like, "I'm sorry you got hurt. I'm sorry that made you feel that way. I didn't mean it. It was only a joke." All of those responses are normal, and none of them are helpful. There is in those responses a turning back to the other person, putting the blame and the harm that happened as something that is that person's fault and not something that's actually our own responsibility. I think it's important to know that this defensiveness that comes forward is normal, and that it is our responsibility when we care about each other and when we wish to do justice in the world, that we take intentional steps to calm that defensive response, to breathe for a moment and allow ourselves to feel it and then let that go, so we can focus on the real issue at hand, which is the harm that we have caused. Which brings me to the second place: intention versus impact. Very few people in this world intend to hurt other people. Most of the time, we want and mean the best for each other. But we are ingrained in our culture and in our bodies actions and thoughts and deeds that project these oppressions onto each other. We don't even know what we are doing sometimes. And that does not mean that it is less harmful. So in an apology, it's important not to say, "I'm sorry, I did not mean for that," because we know that you did not mean to hurt someone. It's about the fact that they were hurt. And so remembering intent versus impact and taking responsibility for the impact our language and actions and deeds have on someone else is super important. It's also important to listen to what someone is fully saying, and to ask questions like, what can I do to make this better? What can I do to heal this harm? And then respecting if someone is not ready to take action, but also allowing ourselves to learn from our mistakes and then taking really, really intentional steps to not allow that hurt and harm to happen. And that might mean we educate ourselves. That might mean that we give distance and space to someone we've hurt. These are all actions we can do to show that we are aware of our impact and that we are willing to commit to changing our actions. Finally, I just want to add that when we lose that defensiveness and we see the harm that happens, we can take another step that can also be a hard one sometimes. We can say, when someone tells us that we have harmed them, thank you for taking that really difficult step to tell me that you've been hurt. That may seem so simple, and yet it is so hard to share with people that we are hurt. Our culture and our society tells us that our emotions mean nothing and that we must be rational all the time. So when someone stops and says, I have been hurt by your actions or your words, when we can thank them for telling us that, for sharing their hurt and harm, not only are we working to better ourselves, but we are also working to better our community. Acknowledging hurt and harm is hard and difficult. And our role as people who sometimes hurt other people is to do the best we can to correct our actions and to heal that harm. This is hard work, but it is good work. May you be inspired to help yourself become the best person you can be.
My name is Jay Cohen. I'm one of your pastoral associates. This is the time in the service where we especially hold one another in our hearts. If you have something you'd like to be shared in the service itself, please let one of the ministers or the pastoral associates know in advance, and we'll get it into the service. Otherwise, just go ahead and put it into the live chat. Mary and Jim Parks for the past year have been active in an Elmhurst group called Backyard Caucus, whose purpose is to promote conversations about race among Elmhurst residents. They have been working with 2 other group members to produce a book that is a collection of stories of Elmhurst residents about their experiences with and reflections on race in their lives. They're very excited to announce that their book has published. The name of the book is Stories of Race in Elmhurst, and it's available on Amazon. Again, Stories of Race in Elmhurst. I'd also like to share a celebration note. I'm one of the Marwood counselors, and we were able to pull off an in-person camp last week. Marwood is a camp for the 7th to 10th grade youth for Unitarian Universalists, and we had originally canceled the camp, and then at the last minute we were able to have camp. And so we just want to thank all the campers and the parents and the counselors and everybody who made that last minute thing possible. It was truly a joy to be part of it. If you ever have anything you'd like to talk to a pastoral associate about, feel free to contact us individually, or you can email pastoralassociates@unitytemple.org. We are always here for you.
Please join me for a moment of prayer and reflection. Spirit of life, these past few weeks and months, we have been aware of news that strikes deep at the conquest of North America. With the finding of unmarked graves of hundreds, likely thousands, of Indigenous children, we have been brought face to face with the evil that our systems of colonialism and conquest and dominance have brought to this land. I grieve for these lives that were lost. I grieve for the lives that we have yet to realize are lost. The evil systems that created the ability for harm, hurt, and death to be perpetuated on indigenous peoples in North America, in Central and South America, is part of our legacy. It is a part that we must reconcile with. Not all boarding schools have unmarked graves, but all boarding schools are complicit in the erasure of a people and a culture. This includes Unitarian boarding schools run by the state and supervised by the denomination. Spirit of life, I am complicit in the systems that allowed this to happen. I am complicit in these deaths. And my heart hurts. It is broken. And holding this moment is vital for me to be able to recognize my complicity in this and to lament it. I have sinned. And that is not the end of the story. For Unitarian Universalism allows us to hold each other, to hold our hurt and our harm together as collective people, so that we might correct the hurt and harm, so that we will not have been complicit in the sin of arrival, but in the possibility of salvation, of doing better and being better and doing what we are meant to do, to bring love and justice into this world. May we sit in this moment and feel what needs to be felt, but let it not be the final word. May that grief and sadness and anger fuel us towards love and possibility. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen. The next portion of our service features a video from Faith and Company with Professor Nineheis of Seattle Pacific University. He brings forth the concept that many Christian scholars have been working on for decades, the concept of systematic or corporate sin and evil and collective salvation. I hope you enjoy this explanation of a new way to look at the words sin and salvation and evil.
Systemic sin, systemic evil. This is something that in Christian theology we've known about for a very, very long time, despite the fact that our patterns, particularly in the West, led us to kind of hide it or not emphasize it in the same way. We really turned in the West to the individual, and there's a lot at stake there. But I have to say, at one level, one of the reasons why we did this was because of the failure of the church to be the church in the Reformation. We made a deal with a kind of secular authority that says, well, we'll divide things up. So the church will be more worried about individual souls, individual sin, but society, politics, all these things, this is the realm of the state. And we'll make a deal with you that we'll let you handle that and we'll handle this over here. And so the result is we're now trained to not think systemically about sin, much less salvation. We've been trained, and it's still the case, we still hear this kind of talk all the time, even though we know better now. We still think about salvation as me going to heaven when I die, rather than God liberating creation to be what it was made to be. We think about sin as moral acts that I did or did not do, that I'm guilty of or not guilty of, rather than a system at work in the world, a power at work that infects all of us, and not just me individually, but my relationships, and every institution that we try to build, including the church, is affected by this thing, right? In the Old Testament, it talks about God saying, the sin of the fathers will be visited on the children. And in modernity, as individuals, we just recoil at that, like that's so unjust, right? But anybody who's got a family with alcoholism in it or abuse in it recognizes that we aren't individuals with this stuff. We inherit this stuff. We participate in it. Trauma is not something that individuals just experience, but it's part of family systems that gets passed down. We're inevitably at one, even in our sin, with each other, right? Acknowledging this and recognizing that, gosh, it's not even just my responsibility to deal with my own moral acts and all that, but to recognize how pervasive all of this is. And then to, I was going to say to act accordingly, but honestly, I think that the thing we do is we confess. We have to acknowledge that things are really screwed up, right? And what if that's one of the primary gifts of the church? What if the church is the only community in the world that's actually going to say, here's what's really happening. It's actually this bad, right? What if confession of sin is one of the biggest gifts we can offer in lament, in acknowledgement of injustice and all of this, I think we can offer more than that. But what if that's one of the key things?
At the 1941 Berry Street Conference, Unitarian theologian James Luther Adams, someone I name as Prophet, presented an essay entitled "The Changing Reputation of Human Nature." In this essay, Adam writes that liberal religions, quote, have enjoyed success for so long, they are now prone to assume glibly that they have arrived. This might be best seen in the ways that Unitarian Universalist congregations work to promote the idea that we are a place people can call home, a safe space. Unitarian Universalist congregations as home is important because for many of us, we found a place where we are safe from the rhetoric of eternal sin and damnation, especially as attributed to our very identity. Yet the word home also has the consequence of giving us the sense that we have arrived, in James Luther Adams' words, that we have no further need for growth or development because we have reached an enlightened, safe space. The power of Unitarian Universalism is, however, not found in congregations as home, as safe, but in the words of Beth Strano, as brave space. Our congregations are places for us to be brave as they challenge us to progress, to evolve, to be transformed into our full potential as human beings, a never-ending, always continuing journey. Being brave means challenging ourselves to look at trauma-inducing words like sin, to examine them in a new light. Why? Because James Luther Adams saw that when we finally examined oppressions in the history and culture of Unitarian Universalism, we would fall back on the belief that we have arrived at enlightenment, and that things like the Commission on Institutional Changes report widening the circle of concern would receive harsh criticism. Because our belief in universal salvation for all, combined with our belief that we've arrived at enlightenment, means that we often use words like mistake, problem, accident to describe the oppression that is literally life-threatening, that makes our belief in the inherent worth and dignity seem almost a joke. Now, if you're like me, the only way I ever knew the word sin was in relation to the mostly minor transgressions that I perpetuated in my life. For me, this understanding of sin was combined with my Calvinist theological upbringing that taught that humans are totally depraved from the moment they are born. This created a deep sense of unworthiness that was only expounded when sin was also applied to my identity, such as my queerness or my womanhood. When I suggest that we reclaim the word sin, this is not what I mean. Systemic sin comes from structural evil. It is the collective systems that perpetuate harm on groups of people and individuals that make living unbearable. Racism, sexism, classism, ecological disaster, capitalism, transphobia, and more. We must reclaim the words evil and sin because the harm that is happening must be taken seriously. And there are no other words that capture this pain and the deaths that result. Further, we must reconcile the ways our individual actions play into the larger systemic sins and evil. The ways that our individual behavior is sometimes sinful when it perpetuates the systemic oppression, harm, and sin. When our individual actions hold up the system. When they deny the inherent worth and dignity of every person. And this is the transformative power of Unitarian Universalism. This lovely Unitarian Universalist home we have in our congregation is the perfect place to learn these lessons and work to embrace these words back into our vocabulary, because we are a brave home. We can hold each other while we do this work. But moreover, when we do this work, we can also become beloved community. So that we can defy James Luther Adams' prophecy for progressive liberals and become what we are meant to be. A constant evolution of transformative power that critiques the state's evil and sin through our own actions together. A place that does not damn us to eternal damnation, but collectively allows ourselves to save ourselves and creation. Now, sin requires lament. It requires us to face our actions and our complicity in these larger systems and to hold that hurt and harm. That cannot be done alone. One individual person cannot hold that much evil, but we can do so together. And when we do so together, we can hold each other's hurt and harm. We can hold our complicity in that hurt and harm. And moreover, as Unitarian Universalist Association President Susan Frederick Gray writes, we can love the hell out of this world. If we are to claim the words sin and evil, however, in a much more powerful and potent way, we also need to reclaim the word love as well. Liberals have a reputation among conservatives of throwing the word love around so casually it loses its meaning. I remember as a young conservative Christian, my own jokes with others like me about how liberals thought that if they just loved people enough, all our problems would be fixed. That we needed the threat of sin and damnation to really convict ourselves of the need to change. I'm not talking about love in this misunderstood way. I'm talking about love as justice, love that hears the prophets. James Luther Adams, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Marsha P. Johnson, and Harvey Milk, and says, yes, you are right. We have sinned. We must change so that together we might save all of us. That is not a weak love. That is a terrifying love. A love so brave, it can only be found in the divinity we find within each other. This is what it means to be Unitarian Universalist. This is what our home is. A space to be brave in the terrifying truth of love, to face our sins, name the truth, sit in lament, heal our souls, and love the hell out of this world.
Each week, Unity Temple gives our Sunday offering to an organization that aligns with our Unitarian Universalist values and is committed to bringing justice to the world. This week, our offering will go to PASO, West Suburban Action Project, a social justice organization doing immigration, healthcare, and tenant justice work in our western suburbs. You may donate through PASO's website, pasoaction.org, or by sending a check to Unity Temple with PASO on the memo line, or by using the camera on your phone to scan the QR code on the screen. May your gift of generosity bring you joy.
Please join me in singing our final hymn, There Is More Love Somewhere, number 95 in the Gray Hymnal. There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere.
As we go forth from this place, may we remember that we are meant to be all of who we are. And that means challenging ourselves and our community to live deeper and fuller into our identities as people, our identities as Unitarian Universalists, and our identities as human beings in this worldly community in order to create beloved community. May it be so. Blessed be.